A few weeks ago, I sat down with a three-person recruitment agency and showed them one thing, and that was how to pull their LinkedIn data, run it through an AI tool, and then find commercial opportunities sitting in their own network that they never looked at or they forgot about. They went over, they used it, and it generated £110,000 in new pipeline opportunity. So in this video, we sat down and we went through their entire business. GRS Global work with some of the biggest logistic businesses in the UK and Europe, and they're trusted to find and place their most senior hires. And when we went through their operations properly, we found exactly what we find in almost every service business we work with. 30 to 40% of their week is being spent on admin time that has absolutely nothing to do with what they're actually best at. We were expecting to find a bit of admin overhead, maybe some reporting, but what we actually found was over 5 hours a week spent on just manually editing CVs, which can be replaced entirely with AI. Then there was outreach, 8 to 100 messages a week being sent manually. There was the placements being tracked on an Excel sheet. There was a database of 180 candidates, most who haven't proactively been contacted in over a year. The thing that surprised me most wasn't any of that. It was that they're about to hire someone on a £40,000 a year salary, which £50,000 all in once you add national insurance costs, onboarding, all of the other stuff that comes with hiring. And we went through line by line of the job description, and 80% of it is fully automatable right now for under £400 per month in software tools. And we mapped it all out live on camera. Now, most service businesses with small to medium-sized teams suffer this same problem. They've got a team, but they're spending so much time on admin and manual tasks that they should be spending on billable tasks, generating new revenue, or actually pushing their business forward. And on this video, you'll see very similar patterns. Not necessarily the same numbers or the same problems, but very similar patterns across every single service business in the Western world. Now, there's a 5-minute quiz at the link in this description, or you can go to aiquiz.montagedigital.io. That's MONTAJ digital.io to basically answer 6 very simple questions, and it will then map your business across each of those key areas, and it will give you a score and the exact next steps on how to actually identify your business. But anyway, without further ado, let's jump into this conversation with Sheldon, and you can understand exactly how I would add 6 figures in revenue and reduce 20 hours of admin work per week to the business. Hope you enjoy. Hey Sheldon, thanks for taking the time to join the call today. So as you know, we're going to have a deep dive into your business, GRS Global, and we're going to really understand how you can implement AI and automation so that you can kind of scale the business a lot more effectively and save on some admin time. But before we actually start, can you just tell me a bit about GRS, your company, and how you actually started?
Yeah, so GRS, Global Recruitment Solutions, is a recruitment company that focuses within the world of freight forwarding and logistics. So we're currently a team of 3. So I'm one of the co-founders along with my 2 business partners. We've been operating about 2.5 years now. And yeah, in terms of why we've done it and kind of our plan, we see that kind of recruitment within, especially our market, we feel is a bit broken. We've set the business up to do things the right way, how business should be done, and kind of get it back to where it should be.
Nice, I love that. And tell me a bit more about the industry. I know you're in freight forwarding, but like why that specifically, and just explain a little bit about what actually freight forwarding is.
Yeah, so freight forwarding is kind of a term that most haven't heard of unless you work in the industry or kind of know someone that does. People are like, I don't know what that is. And being honest, for myself and George and Jack, who I work with, until we started to recruit for the industry, probably was the same. In terms of what freight forwarding is, freight forwarders are companies that essentially organise the movement of goods around the world for companies. So just a prime example, I always use it, is Nike, for example. You know, their clothes, their trainers are made in the Far East, probably somewhere in China. And them goods have to be transported to be in your local JD or in Nike Town in London. And yeah, goods are moved by air, on an aeroplane, ocean, on a boat, and in lorries and trucks that you see going around the M25.
Nice, amazing. And in like the 2.5 years you have been active, how many businesses have you worked with, and how many kind of placements do you think you've actually made? Just like a ballpark.
Oh, put me on the spot now. We've probably worked with, I want to say, around 50 companies.
Nice.
It might be a bit more than that, but I'd say around 50. In terms of how many placements, I feel like I should know that information, but I don't. Oh yeah, do you know what? That's a good question. I would guess somewhere around the 180 mark.
Nice, amazing. And between you and your two business partners, is there like a clear split in which each of you handles, or do kind of all three of you do a bit of everything?
In terms of recruitment focus or in general?
In general, in terms of the business itself, because
Uh,
what I really want to get into the grips of, just so you can understand the question a bit more, is where could we add value potentially? Where could automation or AI, for example, be deployed? So understanding where your kind of time is kind of mainly focused would be really useful.
yeah, so being honest, I probably do a lot more admin slash business focused stuff than the other two.
Hmm.
But yeah, kind of main focus for all of us is obviously, yeah, recruitment. But I then take control of, and that's probably more because I like to take control of the accounts, the business side of things, payroll, etc.
Nice. Okay, that's really cool. And then, what would you say a typical week kind of looks like for you, but obviously the rest of the team as well? Like, how much of your time you spent sourcing candidates, speaking to clients, finding new work potentially? What would you kind of say that looks like?
Yeah, in terms of that, so the majority of our time is going to be spent speaking or contacting um, candidates and clients.
Hmm.
So yeah, in terms of how much time we spend on that, I would probably say for me, at least 60%, probably 70% of my time is spent on that, either yeah,
Wow.
speaking to or reaching out to candidates and clients.
Nice. Amazing. Okay, cool. So definitely a lot of opportunity there for you to be taking away time from kind of the admin and redeploy it into either generating new business or kind of working on the existing business you already have, nurturing those relationships.
Yeah.
And I think in like a recruitment business like yourself, especially as I know that you three love like your golf and whatnot as well, like you could be spending a lot of time nurturing those relationships on a golf course or, calling clients or whatever else it might be, where right now you're spending a lot of time most likely on admin, going through LinkedIn messages, going through email messages. And before we do kind of go into the audit a little bit more, I want to kind of just quickly touch on how we actually originally started speaking about this. And really, that was on how we helped you identify some opportunities in your existing LinkedIn database. So, just for context for everyone watching, I've run Sheldon through this really valuable kind of workflow on how you could essentially generate business from your existing LinkedIn database. And if you go over to LinkedIn and you go over to data and privacy, you can request to download your own LinkedIn data. And then what we actually did is we ran it for a prompt, which I'll happily share in the comments or somewhere around this video. And what happens is it will analyze all of your data and it will find some opportunities. So, Sheldon, as someone who has kind of gone through that process, kind of what is your usage with AI currently, and then how did you find that experience with the Manus kind of workflow?
Well, before that, our experience with AI was extremely basic in terms of it would kind of use ChatGPT for the most basic of tasks in terms of yeah, real day to day basic stuff. Yeah, obviously what you kind of showed me in terms of that LinkedIn side of things and what we've done on Manus. Yeah, I'll
Mhm.
be honest, it blew my mind in terms of firstly the information that LinkedIn stores for your account, but then yeah, two, what AI can actually do with that data and put together to help you use that data. Yeah, was really yeah mind blowing.
Nice. And I know you only did it kind of the other day, but do you like? Could you put like a number on potential revenue impact that's likely going to have on your business? Has it identified any key opportunities that you could potentially follow up on?
In terms of putting a number on it, I couldn't tell you. I mean, it itself
Hmm.
kind of said it thinks it can generate about 110,000 pounds in revenue from following the steps. So yeah,
Amazing.
we've started to do that, and yeah, fingers crossed it does do that.
Nice. quick pause between this conversation between Sheldon and I, because if any of what's kind of going on is resonating with you and you're sitting there thinking, we haven't mapped a single workflow properly since we started the firm, then just head over to our free AI readiness quiz, because it's built for exactly that kind of light bulb moment that you just had. It's at aiquiz.montagedigital.io. That is aiquiz.montagedigital.io, and it only takes 5 short minutes. It will score your firm across the 6 dimensions that matter: data, workflows, team readiness, governance, leadership, and tools. And at the end, you'll get a personalized brief showing you exactly what your biggest margin leaks are. Off the back of the quiz, if you want to go deeper, we actually run a free 60-minute AI implementation audit, very similar to the one you're actually watching now. It's a structured diagnostic where we take your quiz results, apply our frameworks to your specific firm, and give you a prioritized list of 3 to 5 workflows we'd automate first. You walk away with the map whether you work with us or not, so sounds like a no-brainer to me. But the only caveat is we only work with a handful of these free audits per month, and when they're gone until the next month. So if you think your firm is ready for this, or you're not sure but you want to find out, go and do the quiz now. It's in the description. Anyway, back to the video. I hope you enjoy. So of course, a big part of your business as a recruiter is candidate sourcing. And where do these candidates actually kind of currently come from now?
So it would be majority from LinkedIn, job boards such as Read and Indeed, referrals from candidates, and then we've got a CRM system of all the candidates we've spoken to in the past.
Nice. Okay, let's speak about this a little bit more. And would you say this process is kind of entirely manual right now?
The process in terms of,
like when you say the majority from LinkedIn job boards, I come to you as a potential or a client and I say I need this type of candidate. Are you then going out to these different data sources and kind of filtering through and looking through them?
yeah, exactly that.
Okay, nice. And the job boards themselves, what kind of job boards did you say? Read and Indeed?
Yes.
Okay, nice. How do you find the candidate quality on Read and Indeed?
Listen, I don't want to slag it off too much because they're profitable. However, yeah, they are finding an eel in a haystack in terms of the quantity to quality.
Okay, interesting. And your existing database, how are you filtering through them? So you said the kind of candidates you've previously spoken to. Talk me for a bit about that process itself.
Yeah, so in terms of the CRM, yeah, kind of many different ways in terms of how you can do that. In terms of you can go and do a manual search for a particular tag. So when you put a candidate on there, you'll tag them for their job title or what it is they're looking for. You can do a radius search in terms of from a postcode. But yeah, kind of that's probably something that does do it. I say automatically, probably using AI in terms of when we upload a new vacancy, it will then match the candidates to that vacancy, which will then create you a bit of a shortlist. Admittedly, you still kind of need to go through it to make sure they are credible, because it's they're not always credible, but yeah, that does a bit of the work. And yeah, that's mainly the way we kind of use that.
Nice. Well, just off the top of what you've just said, really, what I'm thinking is your CRM. We spoke about this separately, but your CRM has something called an API connector, and what that basically means is we can connect. An API is almost like a bridge between 2 tools, so it allows 2 tools that don't actually connect normally to connect in some way. So it kind of converts the data. Because an API connector exists, what we could actually do is connect your preferred large language model. I think we've spoken about this a bit. Mine's Claude. I know you use ChatGPT. Again, it's a bit like old school Google and Yahoo. They both have their place. One will probably win, but they might coexist at the same time. One's always coming up with new features. But what I'd be looking at, just to recap, is plug in your CRM via API connector into your Claude code. Into your Claude, sorry. And what that will allow you to do is actually chat with Claude and say, hey, Claude, I am looking for X candidate
for private long read
that suits, a B, and C criteria.
You can see here.
So what that will mean is you'll literally be able to
Yeah,
go
it's
onto the
actually
chat,
easily
assuming that's all plugged in
get
correctly,
Swift
and
subjects.
actually asking Claude for this information rather than going onto your CRM and manually filtering it through. And why that's so beneficial is because assuming you have a really good scoring matrix, which I think is also a good opportunity, which we'll sort of touch on in 2 seconds, you can basically cross-reference your candidates, the candidates that you have in your CRM, your scoring matrix, and then it could kind of say, cool, this is a perfect candidate, Kyan's a perfect candidate for this job role at GRS because they fit X, Y, Z criteria, and I'd give them a score out of 10. Does that sound like something you'd think would be kind of beneficial?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, nice. And again, that makes it from like not necessarily automated, but that kind of adds that AI element into it because it'll be able to cross-reference because large language models are really good, but they have infinite data. So if you can give it your contextual data, it can read every single input essentially into your CRM and identify that for you. And then on a scoring matrix, what I think could be really beneficial for you guys, and this could work kind of 2 ways. AI is only as good as you tell it to be, essentially, right? So if you tell it what really good is and what really bad is by some sort of scoring matrix, you could really improve the level of your output. So what I mean by that is for every job role, what you could start doing is manually, when you have this conversation with the client, you know what a good candidate would be and a bad candidate, right? You can start making a workflow where you actually build it out on a Google Sheet, a Google document, or whatever it might be, and answer a few kind of set criteria on, for example, experience or attitude once you've spoken to them, or salary expectation. And I'm sure there'd be like hundreds of different kind of criteria here. But if you almost did like the scoring matrix for the job, for each job candidate with your client, you could then say, we're looking for experience of 2 to 5 years. We're looking for a kind of go-getter attitude. Their salary expectation, is 20 to 40K, whatever it might be. And then what you could do is you could download this as you could download it as anything, but you can have downloaded as a PDF or a markdown file. And a markdown file is just like in the language that code is spoken in. So your AI could read it a lot more efficiently, basically. So you use less credits. And then it could identify it and go through all your existing CRM and actually start finding you candidates based on the scoring criteria. And what that means for you is 1, less time manually searching, which is amazing. And 2, maybe you used to send 15 jobs to, 15 candidates, to a job. And they could have all been okay, and maybe only 3 of them went to interview. Now you could send 5 super hyper personalized candidates, and it's way better to send 5 than 3 get interviewed than 15 and 3 get interviewed, right? Makes you guys look like,
I'm really
snipers
sorry
and
about that. It's
headhunters
just that,
rather than,
obviously,
which I know
when you
you're
see
not,
it like that, as
but
in when
rather
I
than kind
just
of
see
like
it
a
in
spray
Outlook, it
and
doesn't
pray
pick.
kind of agency, essentially.
Then you got to find the
Do you
buyers
think that
and
would?
then
So,
see
what kind of other use
and
cases off the
yeah.
back of that do you
Oh,
think? Before we move
thank
on
you
to
so
my
much.
next kind of idea, do you think that would have?
In terms of, could you then get that to even contact the candidates?
Yeah, in theory, because what you basically would have is your large language model, so your Claude or GPT, as like the brain. The brain almost, which will go into building out kind of these scoring matrices or matrices and kind of context about your company. And then what you could do is give it access to your Outlook or your Gmail, whatever platform you use, and give it the hands, so it could then draft up emails. And a really good use case which we used recently is we're looking at hiring an appointment setter. So someone to call leads basically and book them into meetings with us. And we had an existing list from our prospect, from a friend of ours who basically had interviewed a load of people, and they kind of gave us a CV and a Loom video, which is like a video breaking down why they think they're a good candidate. And what I did is I gave that sheet to my Claude, and it has access to my Gmail, and said, this is the job, this is the email message that I want, this is the kind of positioning I want. And it kind of drafted me an email and put it into my inbox. So all I had to do was go through my inbox and approve the message and then click send. It literally CC'd in all the people I needed CC'd in. It emailed the main person. It made the subject line personalized to that lead. And then it wrote, hey, Sheldon, saw that you reached out to my friend Femi, and we're looking for a similar role. Here's the Loom video I've seen already. This is a bit about the job description. And it did that for every single candidate, I guess, in my case too. And it drafted it into my Gmail, and I could just go through, review the email, and just press send.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty insane. And also, what I was thinking on job searches is, I assume you have to shift through loads of job searches. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't spend loads of time on there, but yes, when you do a search on there, yeah, you're going through a fair bit on there.
Nice. And have you heard of something called Appify?
No.
Okay, cool. So Appify is a scraping tool, right? So it can scrape many things, but like the most common use case is things like Google Maps. But there's a Read connector. I believe there's a LinkedIn connector. There'll definitely be an Indeed connector too. But basically, what you can do is give Appify again to your via API to your Claude, where it could then go and do the search for you. So again, rather than you saying this is, oh, what are we looking for, and doing like an old school Boolean search or filtered search, with the correct connector, you could go into your Claude and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This area, I want 20-mile radius around Heathrow, for example, with this criteria. Find me as many of the searches as you can and put them in a formatted list, and then send it back to me, and it could do all of that for you.
That sounds like a lot of time saved.
Yeah. How much time do you think? I know you said you don't. Actually, that's another thing as well. It's not just time, but it's quality as well. Because if you're saying that you don't spend much time on it because typically Read or Indeed aren't the best sites in the entire world, that's probably because you have to go through every single one and you read their CV and it's rubbish, and then you've got to kind of start again. But what you could actually do is, again, give it your scoring matrix and compare it across the Appify API connector, and only give you basically correct
Ones that
candidates.
tick the boxes.
Exactly, yeah. So we could go Appify API connector to cross-reference your scoring matrix to then send it back only qualified candidates. So yeah, there's a lot of potential in terms of sourcing high quality candidates possible here. And again, you could probably do a similar thing with the LinkedIn as well. Nice. And same with your Firefish. How are you currently using your contacts in your Firefish, would you say?
Say that again, sorry.
How are you currently using the kind of database you do have in your Firefish CRM? And I know we just spoke about opportunities for candidates, but how about with your clients?
Yeah, clients. So yeah, a big part of the CRM and time that we spend on there is probably more the client side. So in terms of sending out a profile of a candidate to try and win new jobs and generate new business from that.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And are you being kind of proactive with this?
Yeah. So in terms of that, I can probably only speak personally, but I assume for the other two it will be the same. Probably kind of 2 to 3 times a week, 2 to 3 candidates. Will we put together a profile for them? And yeah, kind of spec it out.
Nice. Okay, cool. And the thing with this is that's exactly, I think you kind of know this as well, like being proactive and showcasing potential opportunities to clients before they even ask about it, I think is really powerful. And I think if so much of your time has been taken up by admin time, like kind of finding the opportunities or, adding in invoices and all that kind of stuff, that is where, if you kind of reduce that time, you could then spend that time on actually revenue driving activities, like what you just said. Like even, going to clients, need to be careful with the wording when we talk about recruitment, but going to clients of yours and actually discussing, do they actually even need to hire? When should they be looking at growing? What does a department actually have to look like before they start adding another position? But you can only do that business development stuff if you, as a business owner, have the capacity to do so. So really, I think how automation AI can help here is actually reduce your admin hours to increase your business development hours, because the more time and the more hours in a day you're spending on revenue driving activities, the more the business actually grows, right?
Yeah.
And when a candidate actually moves jobs again, how do you find out, or do you actually find out? Do you care? What do you do when candidates do move on?
Just generally, or ones that we've placed, or
Yeah, ones that you place typically.
if they move on from the job we've placed them in. Generally, it will be either that they'll contact us to say, look, this isn't going to plan. I am looking for something new, or it will just be we might see it on LinkedIn.
Nice. And you just physically see that, right?
Yeah.
Would there be a potential benefit to the business knowing that a candidate's moved on, or even, I know you said you asked which one, but even like a candidate you looked at that you thought was a really high quality candidate, like, is there any kind of benefit in you knowing that they're moving on?
Yeah, definitely.
What benefit would that have to the business?
Well, firstly, it will open up. Obviously, if one person is leaving a job to go to another, there's a potential vacancy there to be worked.
Nice. Okay. And right now you're just kind of hoping that you see that they've left.
Yeah.
Nice. What would be really cool, and I'd need to do a bit more research to understand the logistics of this, but what would actually be really, really cool is if that you almost had a active list of all placed roles or placed candidates, I guess. And then you had some tool that was watching each of their LinkedIn profiles. And then if any movement ever occurs, i.e. they change their job or they post about it or something, it then notifies you and the team. And then off the back of that, you can then reach out manually. Obviously, this part would be reach out to the original client. Would that be right?
Yeah.
And then that should equal some pound notes, because then you could go into the active clients and again be proactive and say, I saw this. And that's actually exactly where I'd be looking. Like for candidate sourcing, really, this is your money maker, isn't it? This is how you generate revenue as a business.
Yeah.
So that is definitely the kind of placements I'd be looking at for sure. Nice. And as well as the candidate sourcing, you've obviously got outreach and engagement. With the outreach and engagement, do you send many outreach messages? And if so, how many would you say you send in like a typical week?
Anywhere from 80 to 120, maybe even more.
Per day?
Sorry, a week.
Okay, cool. No, I did ask per week, my bad. And how long does that take you, would you say?
That's a good question. A fair bit of time.
Nice. What, 5 minutes? 5 minutes per send, 10 minutes, 20 minutes?
Some of them are sent together because they're grouped messages. But yeah, listen, that is probably a couple of days' work.
Okay, cool. And how do you identify who needs to be reached out to?
It depends what platform that's on. Again, the majority of them will be on LinkedIn. So again, that is just manually looking at their profile, their skill set, their experience, and deciding look, we need to reach out to them.
Okay, cool. And okay, 1 second, sorry. Cool. And have you ever tried automating any of this?
Didn't know that would be possible.
Fine. Do you feel like it would add value automating this, or do you think it would be something that needs to stay kind of manual?
If you could get it, listen, it's one where if it could be automated and it produced as close as to if you'd done it manually, very close to that, then definitely.
Nice. Okay, cool. I mean, there's a tool that we use with our LinkedIn, and it's called Dripify. Have you heard of this before?
I have heard of Dripify.
Yeah, have you?
I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't tell you what it is, but I've just heard of it.
Nice. So Dripify is a LinkedIn automation tool. And there is a few of these on the market, but in my opinion, Dripify is my favorite. I mean, it's the one I've used the most, so I might be a bit biased there. But what it basically allows you to do is build campaigns. So with this, you can build a campaign that essentially has different roles. So you could have two campaigns. One that could be for sourcing clients, one that could be sourcing candidates, or one could be candidates for A client, one could be candidates for B client, one could be candidates for C client, for example. And what you can essentially do is build a workflow that automatically runs through and it does certain things. So like right now, I have one that goes out. I give it the CSV file of who I want to target, and you could source those through a load of different methods. You can also use your LinkedIn Sales Navigator or whatever else that you use to give it a specific search URL, so like a Boolean search. And what it does, and my one specifically, it goes out and it basically views the profile of the LinkedIn account. It sends a request, and then it basically branches off. So it says, if they accept the request, view the profile. So, it gets the, Kyan viewed your profile, Sheldon viewed your profile kind of notification. It then waits 2 days or however long you want it to do, wait a few hours, wait a day. Then it likes the most recent post of the guy I've given it to. So again, you're saying, okay, this Sheldon looks familiar. They've viewed my account. They've liked it. Who are these guys? It will then only then send a message saying, hey Sheldon, I saw XYZ, and you can put that exact message in that you want, and you could do this exact workflow. And if they don't respond within a certain time period, you could then do another view or like or another message or whatever else you want to do. So you're actually automating it, and it's doing it dripping, like literally drip feeding it, which I'm assuming is where they got the the name from over time. And you could also even do it where if they don't respond within a certain time period, then email you to say you should call this person or do whatever else. So that way these things can be automated. So definitely that would be a low hanging fruit there. I mean, this tool I think is about £50 or $70 a month, I believe, if I'm correct. And like, if you're telling me that is a couple days work, whatever, even if you're the business owner, so you should be valuing your time at way more. But if you value your time at £50 an hour, if it's doing at least an hour of work, sorry, if that's at least an hour's worth of work, that's a no brainer and that's money in your pocket. And then I'll actually get LinkedIn messages quite often, actually, like a few a week, being like, hey, Kyan, yeah, this sounds great. Let's book in a call. I have no idea who they are because I've got this automation running in the background, adding connections, reaching out to people, showcasing how we can help, and then kind of giving them an enticing offer. And that's automating it. That's one part of the puzzle, by the way. The other part of the puzzle would be how good is your message? How good is your offer? How good is what you're actually showcasing to people? So yeah, that is where I'd kind of be thinking with that. I'd be building a campaign that reaches. Oh, that's a bit aggressive. Sorry, just button smashed. Build a campaign that reaches out to candidates for specific client roles, and also reaches out to potential clients, because a lot of kind of this cold messaging stuff, a lot of people think it doesn't work, and it's a numbers game. That's the thing. And you can only do mass volume, as automated, or you need whole roles to do this. And if I remember correctly, you were looking at potentially hiring someone to do this, right? Yeah, so that is actually something that I think with the tools on the market now, you could automate a lot of entry level kind of outreach and just manage it between your team of three. And I don't think AI should be replacing loads of jobs, right? But what I do think it should be doing is increasing the revenue per head of each employee. And right now, where there's three of you, and again, you're all business owners of that, you should be thinking about, okay, cool. If that salary is going to be, let's say, a £30,000 a year salary plus probably commission plus national insurance plus, that's potentially £50,000 into the business that you could automate out for an annual cost of £5,000 by building out the right system of like monthly subscriptions and whatnot, and you replace physical labor cost with software cost, which is a massive form of leverage as well. And also doesn't take a sick day, doesn't need onboarding, doesn't hand in their notice. Do you know what I mean? Like, doesn't complain, works 24/7, just cracks on with it, right? Doesn't give you
Yeah.
any headache. Does give you headache sometimes, but it's not always sunshine and rainbows, right? Nice. And then do you guys have like a system of keeping kind of candidates engaged between placements, or what's that kind of look like?
Um, what do you mean by that?
So let's say you reach out to a candidate, they're a great candidate, they get they get agreed to be placed, but they've got a notice period, or there's some sort of time lag for whatever reason, and obviously you risk them potentially dropping out before they take the
Yeah.
placement.
Yeah, fine. So being honest on that, it's probably more from experience. We know
Mhm.
to just keep in contact with them. So have we got like a set kind of speak to them every 2-3 days? No.
Mhm.
We kind of just do that as we know and kind of as we feel what we needs to be done. And that is just keeping in contact with them, catching up with them every week, every couple of days, whatever it needs to be.
Nice. And to be honest, I don't think this should be automated. I think this should be human. And I think that just means, let's say you reached out to me as the candidate twice, typically. I'm not saying like that's how many you do. But if you did do that twice, but you're also spending all this other time searching job boards, figuring out who's a good or bad candidate, manually searching your CRM, looking for potential vacancies when they've moved on. Now that you don't have to do all of this, you can be spending more time on this, which reduces the rate of them dropping out and increases the chance of you guys getting paid. Have you got any kind of questions on anything we've spoken about so far, Sheldon?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm probably gonna have loads. How quickly can you set it all up? No, not at this point. I think you've explained it quite well.
Nice, amazing. And there's a few other kind of low-hanging fruits, and it's kind of very similar to what we kind of spoke about with Manus. And I have recently done this with a client, and funny enough, they're in the recruitment space too, where they had ran their company for 5 years. And very similar to going through your LinkedIn, we plugged in his email to Claude, and we basically said, Claude, this is my kind of dream kind of client to work with. They've got this kind of revenue, looking for these kind of placements, etc., etc., etc. Is there any jobs sitting in my emails that we spoke to 2 years ago, or when you first started, that were interested, but you couldn't engage with them because of whatever reason? For example, just to relate it to you. And this particular client I'm speaking about, they actually found all these opportunities, and then based off those opportunities, re-engaged them, and they actually signed a £60,000 worth of actual deals through that email, and they got a big partnership to work with a group of companies, because the guy who initially spoke to had moved on to another company, and they could then partner with that company and get even more. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. In terms of kind of, as you mentioned there, Dripify, we've talked about Manus, we've talked about Claude. How many kind of different type of, I don't even know what you call them, apps or AIs do you feel you need, and what kind of roughly is the cost of these things?
That's a great question. So they're called more generally large language models, so like LLMs. And basically, in my opinion, they all do very similar things, just some are better than others. So you've got Google's got Gemini, Anthropic's got Claude, OpenAI's got ChatGPT, Meta's got Manus, and it's like a massive arms race at the moment. So everyone's got infinite budgets, everyone's the best tool in the market. Everyone does this, everyone does that. So to answer your kind of question, they typically cost between £20 to £100 a month, depending on how much credits you're using, because they work on a tokenization system. What do you actually need? In my opinion, you actually only need, in theory, one large language model that is really well trained on what you do. If you're someone like me who's in the industry of implementing AI and processes to businesses, you might want to have a few subscriptions to a few different ones to understand the nuances of each. For example, Google's very good at research, so their Gemini model is really good at that. Manus is really good at analyzing meta ads because it's owned by Meta. ChatGPT is really good at understanding loads of general different things because it's probably the oldest on the market now. Claude, in my opinion, is the best all-rounder. So basically, stick with one for a prolonged period of time, understand it, teach it as much as you can, and then that's how you'll succeed.
How long does it take to kind of implement what we've just discussed?
So in terms of the processes and whatnot that we spoke about, completely depends on the workflow. And like at Montage, we do kind of sprints. So we'll go in, we'll identify 5 to 10 core automation and AI opportunities within a business. And our aim will be to get everything installed and deployed within a 90-day period. And then you have that feedback loop of, has this actually worked? Has this actually generated revenue or saved us money? Because they're two sides of the same coin. Saving money and making more money kind of both add money in that sense. They're both commercially viable, right? But a small deployment could be a day or a couple hours. A bigger workflow could be a few weeks. So yeah, it gives you a lot of opportunity to add a lot of value. So like, for example, if we wanted to, like Dripify, in theory, we could sit down on an hour call and set up everything on Dripify, no problem. But the kind of scraping job boards and building out scoring matrix and then scraping LinkedIn and connecting it to your Claude, that'll take a little bit more time. And also, the main thing is experience and understanding, which is also super important.
Perfect.
And yeah, I mean, what I think as well, if I just to round this all up, I think recruitment is a massively relationship-led business. And I think there's a lot of time being spent on admin. And I think also a lot of recruitment firms, not you guys, I know not you, like you guys don't because of how well you conduct yourself, but get a bad reputation for being transactional. And if you can spend that time instead of admin, instead of chasing the next deal, instead of inputting data onto a spreadsheet, if you could let AI and automation deal with a lot of those processes, that will allow you as the business owner, as the kind of recruiter, to spend more time on nurturing those relationships and adding value to the client. And that way you could focus on that even more kind of thought leadership, to even grow your business, running events, going to events, building out sales packs, adding value to development teams, which will only make you enjoy your job more, but increase the potential revenue and relationship with your clients. Nice. And just finally, before we do wrap up, Sheldon, I actually had a few kind of ideas on just speaking to you guys on some kind of quick wins that you could do. Do you mind if I run you through that?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So if I share my screen again, I've just put this onto a little Miro board. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
Cool. So what I think you could really do that would add a lot of value to you guys is a few different steps. And kind of how you said, how long does all this take? I kind of mapped this out into a 3-month process. What I would first be thinking about doing is doing some sort of audit on the business. So we've obviously done just an audit now. We've understood a few kind of revenue drains and how things could potentially add time. But what we'd also then be looking at doing is almost building out, if I just apply this, almost building out like a GRS brain. And what I mean by that is an assortment of files that understands your brand really deeply, understands what kind of content, what kind of phrasing, who your ideal client is, all of that kind of stuff. Because I also know you do a lot of social media content, so helping you automate the creation of that would be super important. What we could then do is build like a golden one-page generator. And that is kind of going back to that scoring matrix. You send a client what is an ideal candidate so that you could pinpoint exactly who they are and you could plug into these systems, you could put them on job boards, etc. I'll then be looking at an email re-engagement AI. So what I spoke about, going through your emails, going through your LinkedIn and finding opportunities to then re-engage with them. An interview scheduling agent. Now this isn't one we spoke about, but basically a agent that is connected to you and your business partners' calendars, and rather than going back and forth with a candidate, what day are you free, what time are you free, it could basically read your calendars and say, so hey Kai, I've got Monday 3 to 5, I've got Tuesday 12 to 2, and I've got Wednesday 10 to 4. Pick a time in there, and based on the response on the email, actually go in and book it in with them. and then have that calendar and confirm. Again, almost like having your own PA, but without needing a PA, and it just reads your emails. That's more of like I know that's time saving, but also like just less headache for you as well. Some way to kind of keep your candidates comms in line, but I feel like again that should be human touch. Database reactivation, going through all of your CRM, going through your LinkedIn, going through your emails. That's just one more macro point. That's kind of what I'd be looking at as quick wins in month one. Why? Because they're low hanging fruit and they generate revenue for the business, or they make your life easier. Anything else you think would be like super quick wins, or anything you'd add to any of those?
The only thing that I would maybe say is if you could getting involved with like invoicing and the actual admin tasks that I probably don't spend too much time on that, but yeah, I spend a bit of time weekly on that.
And how does your invoicing process look like at the moment? Like, does an invoice come in? Do you have to take out invoices? What would that look like?
Being honest, our placements are currently old school on an Excel spreadsheet, which I'll check every week to make sure I don't forget who's starting. And then I'll literally go and create an invoice and send it off.
Nice. Yeah, that could definitely be like automated. So
I'm guessing it's the same for like payroll, working out commission.
100%. So do you have like a central dashboard for you and your two business partners to like know how many candidates you've spoken to, how much revenue's been generated, all of that kind of stuff?
Only that we've got that on the CRM, to be fair.
Nice. And how do you input that data currently?
That automatically does it. So it only actually gives you true data if we keep the data or the CRM up to date, which I can't say we do all the time.
So you have to physically log into your CRM and like input it.
It's based off the activity that you put on the CRM.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. Because also with all of these systems, the system's only as good as the data you give it. So what you could do, and my brain's ticking here now because I think this would be super valuable for you guys, is if you could get that CRM integrated into your Claude or your ChatGPT via API, which is what we've already spoken about, you could have a scheduled task every Monday to Friday at, say, 5 p.m. or whenever your days typically finish, that messages you and says, "Hey Sheldon, hey Jack, hey George, just tell me these stats." And it could be whatever KPIs you kind of track, candidates placed today, calls made, whatever follow-ups, whatever your key stats are. You could ask all of those questions and you could answer it in chat. You send it a voice note, you could do whatever you want without having to log into the app, because it doesn't sound like very long, but it is a long process. I know it is, logging into a CRM and every single time you do a task. You could literally just voice note your chat and keep it in one chat and answer the question, and using the API, it will go away and then fill out that data for yourself. And then you could actually just use your CRM as that dashboard rather than building out a custom internal dashboard. That would be really good, really good place, and something that would actually add a lot of value to you guys. Because then you wouldn't have to sit there working out commission; it could do it for you. I'm assuming there's a set split the way that you do commissions, like everyone's on the same kind of value, so you just apply the same percentage. But that would be really good. I think that is the key unlock, the CRM API integration with a weekly, sorry, I'd say daily chat required to be filled. And just for context, what I have with mine, right, is my Claude every single morning at 7 a.m. It reads my Gmail, it reads my Slack, which is what I communicate with my team on. It reads my Notion, which is where all of our tasks are on. It checks all my Fathom call recordings because I record all of my calls, and it checks all of my Google Drive. And every single morning, it will say what I need to do today, what my top 3 priorities to do in the morning, what my top 3 priorities to do in the afternoon, all my calls. If I need to prep for any calls, it will then say Ibrahim needs to do this, this, and this today. And it will say Helen needs to do this, this, and this. My team will say so-and-so needs to do this, this, and this. And it will say anything that's blocked or outstanding, because it's kind of plugged into all of my systems. So that's just so much kind of time save. I never miss anything now, because I'll log in and I'll say, okay, cool, I've got that call with Sheldon today. Obviously, I already knew that, but then it will say, don't forget, you need to prep. So now I've got some time aside that I could prep for it. And that's only because everything is neatly integrated. So that would be a massive unlock.
It's
And even with
essentially like
fitness,
a PA, right?
100%. Like that's a 30, 40, 50K a year salary, like that I've essentially built for. I pay $100 a month for my Claude, so £80 a month. But like that's not even lunch for a week. So it's crazy, really, what can be done with the right systems. And again, even that simple unlock, like there's 3 of you. Like if you have all your data in one place, knowing who needs to be followed up with, when and how and whatnot, it's amazing. So that's definitely something that we should be looking at.
Yeah.
Because also what I think we should be looking at is even things like LinkedIn sourcing automation. We kind of spoke about that. AI candidate scoring, I think, would be super important. So some sort of general formatted way of scoring candidates would be great. Daily performance dashboard, which is kind of almost like what we just spoke about. If you had that, that would be a really useful unlock. CV formatting. So do you do a lot of CV formatting yourselves?
Yes. Yeah, literally 10 to 15 minutes a CV that we send out.
Okay, so this is exciting because what you could do. Have you heard of something called a skill, a Claude skill?
No.
Okay, so this is a really quick and easy unlock. Build a Claude skill, which basically you train it and you teach it on exactly how your CV should look, how it should be formatted, what key information should be had there. Keep it to X amount of characters, X amount of lines, always a one-pager. And if you have a Claude skill, basically this is like a set of instructions that you've taught someone how to do it, and all you give it the input and it makes the output. So if you know a cake recipe was this much milk, this many eggs, this much flour, all you needed was those inputs, right? And it made the output of the cake. Imagine that where your input is bad CV. So we go bad CV, or just CV, doesn't necessarily have to be bad, into the Claude skill, which then outputs perfect CV. And this would save you, 15 minutes per CV?
Yeah.
And how many CVs do you say you do like per week, roughly?
Between us, anywhere from 10 to 20.
10 to 20. So you're saving 300 minutes. You're saving, that's 5 hours a week, right? What was this, a day or a week, sorry?
Yeah, a week.
That's 5 hours a week right there. That's 20 hours a month. That honestly, that could be done in. I'll help you after the call, set this up. Like this
I can tell you what that is.
yeah.
That's a round of golf.
Exactly. There you go. That's it. That's exactly what that is. That's how I need to kind of quantify things with you. It's not money. It's rounds of golf. That is great. So yeah, that's a whole round of golf a week that you can play now without any guilt. So amazing. So yeah, Claude skills are also really important, like really powerful tools. That again, ChatGPT has a similar function, but that is kind of how I would be looking at that. And then finally, what I'd be looking at, like kind of month 3, would once you've kind of tightened up your operations, once you've streamlined your process, you'd be going able to, just for arbitrary numbers, handle 10 clients and 50 candidates to 20 clients and 100 candidates. Because then what you'll be able to do is start building out a market intelligence agent. And obviously, we're already working with you to build a salary dashboard, which has kind of very detailed market intelligence. But that would just allow you to spend more time on building things like this out. Also, what would be really good, and this is something we do, and again, I'll help you set this up, is do you take many Teams calls with your clients, or most of them phone calls?
A mix, to be fair. Probably more phone calls than Teams calls, but yeah, a mix of both.
Okay. So what we have, right, is client call. And then on our client call, we have a Fathom note taker, right? Which basically just takes notes, kind of does what it says on the tin, right? But what we do now is after every call, we take our Fathom note taker, we take the transcript, and we make a personalized deck, literally within 15 minutes of the call, that we can send over to the client and say, "Hey Sheldon, so you identified point X, Y, and Z based on our conversation. And here's a personalized deck because it's only a few pages, but it says, this is your problem A, this is how we solve it. This is your problem B, this is how we solve it. This is your problem C, this is how we solve it. Fully branded, sent over to the client within 10 minutes of speaking to them. And it's just a super important way to kind of keep that added value and showing that you actually listened and cared. And this could be done literally, again, this is 15 minutes. And if that, this is 2 minutes of your time. 2 minutes of your time. But what would the value be, you know, to a prospect or a client getting a fully personalized deck a few calls after? And the tool we actually use for this, just in case you want to play around with it afterwards, is called Gamma. And now Claude is getting good enough to do this kind of stuff too. But Gamma is basically an AI presentation builder. And it's actually either free or £8 a month. So no brainer to input this as a post-call follow-up. Super important.
Yeah.
Nice. That is how we would not only save you guys a load of time, increase your client relationships, increase your revenue, and ultimately increase your satisfaction so you can spend more time on the golf course.